Hello, welcome to the virtual classroom. I'm so glad that you have spent or made the decision to spend some of your very busy life with some extra help in USVA history. We're going to go through basically every single class period, the most essential information, and the most essential information, as you know, is on your class notes. So the way I think you should go about doing this would be to get your class notes in front of you, make sure you got the right video, and go on a historic journey with me between 10 to 13 minutes per. And with that said, let's get going. First one, guys, we did 1.1 and 1.2 in one day. These are the first two sections of your textbook, and they're all about what was it like in North America and Central America before any Europeans came. So, first we got to decide, where did these people come from? Well, the first Americans, many scientists believe, arrived in the Americas between 15,000 and 30,000 years ago. Now, how did they get here? Because at one point, it is likely that there were not humans in North America. Well, they came over a land bridge, is what most scientists think, called Beringia. Now, think about this. It's by Alaska, and you should have a map in front of you. If they come from Alaska to North America, then it means they most likely came from Asia. So scientists think that there is a connection between Asians and Native Americans. Why were they coming? They're nomadic. They were roaming hunters. And if you were looking to feed your family and the giant beast that would feed your family is going across Beringia, then you would follow him as well. Now, many Native Americans did, and over time, you got to understand this happens over hundreds, if not thousands of years. We see people spreading to North America. Now, the last point under First Americans on your class notes is that these peoples learned how to plant and raise crops. This is called the Agricultural Revolution. And they added this to their knowledge of hunting and fishing because it's easier to plant corn because the corn's not going to run away from you. If you have the ability to plant and hunt and fish, then you have the ability to provide for yourself and for your society. They did it going over Beringia. Now, there are many tribes of Native Americans that the textbook looks at. We're really concerned with four as related to our class. First is the Cherokee. Cherokee is the largest Native American group in the southeast. So we're talking about modern-day Virginia, or I'm sorry, modern-day Georgia, modern-day in the Carolinas. Is really the heart of Cherokee Nation. Most Cherokees lived in towns while women farmed and the men went and hunt and fish. So the agricultural revolution applies more to the women in the Cherokee while the men, Cherokee men are hunting and fishing. Next up, the Sioux. Sioux is the largest Native American in the Great Plains. This is the modern-day Midwest. We're talking out west now. Sioux people lived in cone-shaped tents called teepees. You see an image in this PowerPoint. The typical teepee that many Native Americans get associated with really belongs to the Sioux. Now, the Sioux were nomadic people. They roamed around, but they were in search of the buffalo. So we have the Cherokee in the southeast. We have the Sioux out west. Let's talk about our eastern woodlands Native Americans. These are the big-time tribes that we're concerned with the early history of the British colonies. First, the Algonquians. Algonquians are a group of Native American peoples who all spoke an Algonquian language. That is how they connected. Take a look at the map. You're going to see a lot of red that's kind of spread apart. They weren't connected geographically because they were spread, but language connects the Algonquins. It's very important, all right? These people lived mainly in the northeast, but were as present as far south as modern-day Virginia. Algonquins would hunt, fish, and farm to provide for their people, okay? So understand, eastern woodlands, we got people hunting, fishing, and farming. Now, there's one other group that hunt, fishes, and farms in the eastern woodlands, and that is the Iroquois. The Iroquois are also a group of Native Americans that all spoke an Iroquoian language. So that's the same thing with the Algonquins, right? They're centered around western New York. Women farmed while men hunt and fish. So we got our Sioux that are more nomadic, but the Algonquin and the Iroquois both farming, hunting, and fishing, and they're both eastern woodlands. That means they're on the east coast of the United States, mainly. Iroquois people often went to war with each other, and in the late 1500s, 5 nations, the Seneca, Cayuga, Oneida, and Mohawk, formed an alliance to oppose their energy, excuse me, it's Friday, all right, give me a break, their enemy. These 5 nations became known as the Iroquois Confederacy. All right, that takes care of one whole section. Let's finish the second section. Europe begins to explore. We're under the expanding horizons. You see the slide up here about the Crusades, right? The Crusades start when Christian armies go to the Middle East to retain control, or to get control, I should say, of the Holy Land. Now, as you remember from World War I, it was quite an ordeal with lots of violence. But for our class, we need to know that the Crusades led to contact between Europeans and Arab traders. And one of the things these Arab traders had was super luxury East Asian goods, things like spices and sugars and silks. Europeans loved these items. They were in very high demand. Please do understand, though, these are Middle Eastern traders. The traders had land trading routes to East Asia. So the East Asians would trade with the Middle Easterns, and then there was contact in the Middle East with the Crusades. Europeans would get these goods. And these, like I said, and an example that I used in classes, this was the iPhone 4S of this time. Okay? Trade routes to the Middle East were controlled by Italian and Arab kingdoms who charged high price for access to Eastern goods. So it was the Mediterranean Sea is how you get to the Middle East. But many Italian city-states controlled this area, so these European countries wanted to get the spices, the silks, the sugars. They had to find another way to do it. Now, you see this map up here. You should be able to follow my cursor. If we're over here in Western Europe, right, so we're in Spain, Portugal, British Isles, France, and you need to get over here where the goods are, you want to go through the Mediterranean Sea. But as I just said, Italian city-states, man, can't get through there. So instead, they would go around Africa to India. And the first person to do that is this guy, Vasco da Gama. Vasco da Gama was a Portuguese explorer, and he understood you had to go west around Africa. So Portugal, has the first water route. Now, while going around Africa comes contact with the kingdoms of West Africa. By the year 400 AD, large empires in West Africa were emerging. The 2 largest were the empires of Ghana and Malay. Warfare and exhausted, no longer fertile soil forced these empires to turn to trade to survive. That's really important. These West African kingdoms, their economies, their money comes from trade. Unfortunately for society, it also delves into the slave trade. Arab traders would exchange horses, cotton, and other goods for enslaved Africans. In the 1400s, Spain and Portugal began establishing sugarcane plantations, and these sugarcane plantations required amazing amounts of labor. So this labor came from the slave trade in West Africa. Guys, you want to flip your page over by now? We're in Spain Claims America. Spain claims America in 1492. An Italian sailor named Christopher Columbus persuades King Ferdinand and Isabella to financially support his expedition to go west. Because what Columbus is saying is if you go west, you can go to the other side and end up in East Asia. Remember, he's Italian, but he's flying under the Spanish flag. Well, as we all know, Columbus doesn't go west. He does go west, but doesn't get where he thinks he goes because he runs into North America. He actually lands in the Bahamas. All right. Columbus finds North America. He's given credit with discovering it, but it wasn't what he thought it would be. He thought he was going to a place to make lots of money trading. Let's talk a little about Hernan Cortez. So once Columbus finds North America, a lot of people think that's a barrier to East Asia. It's a barrier to getting those goods. Cortez says, no, let's look at it. Cortez sends his army over, but the Aztecs were where he lands. So Cortez fights the Aztec people, takes control, he gets the name conquistadors or conquerors of Central America, and now we have a colonial setup in North America. It's really Central America, modern-day Mexico, and it's New Spain. New Spain comes from Cortez. The Native Americans, the Aztec people, were put on the very bottom of the social pyramid, if you will, and forced to work on farms and in mines. New France. Let's talk a little bit. New France. French exploration began with the search for a northwest passage. So everybody wanted to go through North America to get to Asia. At first, France tried that, but then they realized, let's see what's actually happening inside of North America. Can we make money? Kind of like Cortez did. But they go about it in a different way. They established the royal colony in Quebec, and the economy of New France was based on the fur trade. This is important. Fur trade, you don't need the land like you do for a mine. You're just making exchanges. You just need to get the beaver, get the skunk, get the whatever, probably not a skunk, more like a lynx, off of that land to make the fur trade happen. So they didn't take as many Native American lands. As a result, they had better relationships with Native Americans. Last thing, Columbian Exchange. Let's just look at this map, guys. The Columbian Exchange is if you have an Old World, Europe, New World, the Americas, and each side has so many different things, and you can see here, we've got from the New World to the Old World, corn, tomatoes, potatoes, peanuts. From the Old World to the New World, livestock, cattle, sheep, pigs, horses, peaches, other things that can, other foods I should say. The most important thing about the Columbian Exchange is the disease. The disease that gets transferred from the Old World to the New World destroys so many Native American lives. Like 75 to 95% of Native Americans die from disease, and the reason is because they did not have the immunities to fight the diseases from the Old World. Here's a really important image to look at. We see a European on the right. You could actually see the breath as it's depicted. That's supposed to be the transmission of smallpox, which is one of the biggest killers, and it would lead to the disease that affected the Native Americans in the Columbian Exchange. Thanks, guys, so much for your time. That takes care of section 1.1 and 1.2. We got 3 more videos left. I hope you will join me on the virtual journey. Thank you.